Hi, and welcome to the AIScento Podcast. We explore AI and reshaping leadership and business in the future of work. Today's conversation is an important one. We're diving into how AI is transforming human resources, learning development, and career strategy, and importantly, how professionals can move from fear and uncertainty to clarity and opportunity. I'd like to welcome today Travonnie Mackey. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing it correctly. Yeah,
You
a
did great.
leader. All right, in HR and learning development with deep experience and talent strategy, workforce growth, and organizational development. Travonnie, welcome to AIScento Podcast. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, we'll start in our first segment here, which will be around AI and the evolution of HR. So, starting here, from your perspective, how is AI fundamentally changing HR right now?
Yeah. I think that technology has always played a role in what HR teams do, but now we're looking for opportunities to maximize the robot, right? We know that so much of our work is systems and people, and there's a balance of that you have to strike in order to have a really strong culture. And so when we look at new work that's needed, the first question is not always do we need to hire? The first question is what can we automate? Where can we create some synergy? Where can we move this information faster? And I think people are used to thinking capacity in terms of people. And now they're starting to think about it in terms of bots and opportunities to streamline their data through AI. So I think the hiring moment feels different. You know, it feels like it was very easy for people to assume the business needs help. We need to hire. We need to add more people. And now we've got to actually have a different crossroads. And I've seen this to the extent that some teams are combining their chief HR person with their information person because it is one solution and maybe the options are talent, sometimes the options are technology, but it is linked up in a way it hasn't been in the past.
Okay. And where are you seeing the biggest shifts in recruiting and performance management, training, workforce planning? Are there specific areas where you think the biggest shifts are currently taking place?
I think there are two areas that are loud. We're looking at insights, the places where the organizations are trying to get a deep sense of what's happening in their engagement. There are lots of resources available, usually too much data, too much information, and therefore it is not insight, it is overload. Oftentimes, talent teams are looking at their people data and not sure what to do with it. We're seeing places where AI can give better insights, where the correlations between like this action plan versus this one and the impact it can have on the business, it's really easy to understand. It's less trial and error. Let's try this and see if that helps our people. There are more insights gained in the experience data. The other place I see it showing up is in job clarity, in competency model development, where people are getting a better sense of how to grow individuals in their roles. I think this is the biggest feedback people have for their managers is that I'm not growing here, I'm not stretching, I don't have training the way I would like to, especially when they're looking to move beyond their roles. So managers have felt very overwhelmed by the idea that it's my job to develop people. Right, it's my job to make sure they not only are good at this job, but they have opportunities for career advancements in this company. Tailoring that is nearly impossible for a manager who is busy. And so being able to use AI tools to get clear on an individual's career trajectory and the knowledge and skill that they need to embed into the practice is really helpful for managers.
And then do you feel like organizations are leaning in, or do you feel like they're still hesitant around this?
I think they feel forced in. I don't think anybody is getting away with being hesitant, but I do
Mhm.
think they don't feel like they have a choice. So there's still not buy-in. There is, I don't want to be behind the eight ball. I don't want to be behind the learning curve. I don't want to miss opportunities to save money. And so I need to figure this out. I need to understand it better. But I don't necessarily see the appetite. And I think it's coming from the right place. It's coming from a place of, I believe people are important in our strategy. And I don't believe the AI or any technology is going to replace the value of people who care about our business. And so they're leaning so far into that direction for the right reasons. but they're missing opportunities to advance the business.
And what, if anything, do you think leaders are getting wrong about AI and HR currently?
What are they getting wrong? I think they're just not getting started. Um, I think that there's some there's some problems in talent work that don't get solved because we don't think they are solvable. So we decided, performance management sucks a long time ago. Nobody expects to have a good performance review. People expect it to be miserable. And so we don't solve those problems. And I think what AI allows us to do is to put some problems back on the table that we decided were not priority, were not solvable, we're going to take too much work. And there are some efficiencies. And so I would say the place where our performance management design stalls with our clients is the competency model design. They feel like we don't have time to build a new competency model. Our leaders don't have time to pay attention to it and design it. And so we can't do it. If they don't have a chance to look at it and vet it and say, yeah, these are the skills my department needs, or these are the ways that people can grow on my team, then we don't have a valid competency model. But there are AI tools that can take all of your job descriptions, simplify them, and synthesize them very quickly. And now those leaders have a draft. And those leaders are saying, yeah, those are the skills, or those are not the skills. And then immediately you can give your people clarity. One of the biggest gripes workers have for their bosses and for the company is you can't tell me where my career is going here. There's not this, when you finish this job, these jobs are available. And managers are not great at explaining that because they don't know what's available. They don't know what's possible. So I think getting started could sound like, what are those old business problems that we decided were too hard? How do we bring them back to the table? And where are some tools where we could go faster if we assumed this was solvable?
Okay. Let's talk a little bit now about learning and development in the AI era.
Yeah.
So, corporate training has often been complex and slow moving. I know it's an area I've been involved in quite a bit
Yeah.
throughout the years. How does AI simplify or even accelerate learning and development?
Yeah. Great question. So I like to talk to our clients about the 70-20-10 L&D model. Are you familiar with that one?
I
Uh,
can't say that
it's
I am.
it's the best because
Okay.
it hits on a thing that we all feel in L&D strategy that seems like no one ever says. So 70-20-10, 10% of the learning that you're going to experience at work is from formal training. That's when I take a course. That's where I sit in our collective training opportunities, or we bring in an outside facilitator to teach us something. 10%. 20% of our learning comes from that collaborative environment where I'm sitting with a peer and I'm saying, hey, I'm trying to do this. How do you do it? And they share their strategies. Or I go to a conference and meet someone who is a peer alike and they share how they've done it. That peer learning is 20% of our learning. 70% is the on the job learning. And we don't give enough credit for that. When we recognize there are some L&D needs in the company, we immediately go to training. We immediately send people to a conference. Those things are not bad, but that is not how people learn and grow. And so the reason we get stuck on the 70 in that L&D planning is managers are not career planners. They are not competency developers. They are brilliant. They are really good at what they do. And so what they are able to do is look at your work and say, hey, this part, do it differently. Or hey, you missed something right there. I usually catch that this way. So they're really good practitioners in their field. What they're not great at saying, let me zoom out with you on the skills that you need to build. Okay. When I look at your reports over and over, these skills are missing. And so there are some really cool chat tools, chat bots, and AI tools in performance management systems and platforms that help a manager say, hey, my staff member is doing this, this, and this. What do I need to work with them on? Tailored immediately. And that has really been a little bit of an obstacle that we've decided we couldn't solve in management is to tailor somebody's career planning.
And how should companies rethink traditional training models with in light of what you're talking about here and
Yeah, I don't think it should go away. I think it's important. It's the way that we level set and we lay the frameworks and say everyone here is responsible for knowing these things. That is good. It's the building after it that gets left out. We don't build enough cohort opportunities where people are saying, let me share my thinking with you and you share yours with me. And that's where we're building judgment. So I've got the framework. Now I need to apply it in a way that matches my values, that matches how I want to move as a leader. So I might observe the way you do it and say, feels like your people feel heard. And that's not a thing I'm experiencing. Let me apply it the way you would in this scenario. People need that pressure testing space to internalize the content. And then they need the 70. And the 70 is where managers are giving direct feedback and building direct coaching plans. So, yes, you did that training, and it seems like you have thought about how to apply it, but let's look at if it worked and why it worked. Managers are usually not, I wouldn't say usually not. There are a lot of managers doing this right, but oftentimes staff have critique of their managers that you're not a helpful thought partner. Right? When I share my work with you, I don't want you to tell me what's right or wrong about it. I want you to help me see the places where I'm getting better at something or I'm still missing something. And I think that the AI tools can really help managers with that part. That's Don't take the training away, but assume that people should apply it and help managers do that.
Okay. And what is
Yeah.
one thing that L&D leaders should start doing immediately, in your opinion?
Assessing performance management on a platform. There are too many options now to not be using one. I work with a lot of companies that are still a bit in an archaic space with feedback and performance management. They aren't using a system. And so there's a couple of things that's robbing them of. They don't have a big picture view of performance and engagement and the connection between the two. And so when staff are deeply engaged and high performing, we really appreciate their work, want to celebrate them. But when they're not, we don't quite catch where it's going wrong. And oftentimes, learning and development is what's missing, right? Where we're seeing trends and competency gaps that are connected to program we never offered. We never offered training on that. And this is why people are underperforming. And so, of course, they're disengaged. They didn't get the support they needed. So we either need to hire people who don't need it or we need to build that in. So I think the first thing I would do is look at how performance management is handled and where could we be using some platforms to get us better insight. That would be step one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a little bit now from kind of fear to positioning. A lot of fear in the market about AI and
Yeah.
what's happening. There's a lot of
Yeah.
anxiety around AI replacing jobs. How should
Yeah.
professionals reframe that narrative, in your opinion, from your
I think they
experience?
need to, yeah. I think that fear is valid. So I think maybe step one is let's validate that. When people are navigating unknown territory, it absolutely creates some anxiety. People don't like to feel inadequate. They want to feel like they are good at their jobs. And this creates a landscape we've never seen before. That said, I think leaders will move with confidence if they can double click on that people are important lens. That's what everybody's wondering. Is my job going to replace me with AI, with a bot, with a tool? And there are some places where yes is the answer. And so we just need to get more transparent with people and say, right now I have you building these manual reports because we don't have another way to do it. And if we have another way to do it, your job will not be necessary. But if we have the foresight to know what other jobs will be, and we have the learning and development tools available to grow people into those, it doesn't have to be that we're throwing our people away. It can say, I want your job to evolve, and you're going to need to be skilled at this. Here's how we help you get skilled at that. So the L&D continues to just be a critical part of that. Is we don't want to tell people the truth that they feel that their jobs will morph or replace or evolve in a way that might make them feel like they aren't a fit for it or they're inadequate. Be honest with people about that where you see those trends, but then build some L&D programming that allows people to see a pathway in your company or to their next thing.
And I think I've heard the saying that AI will not replace your job, but people who know AI will replace your job, right?
Yeah.
It seems like that's kind of a theme that is running now. What is a
Yeah.
mindset shift that people need to make right now, as with
Mm.
regards to with this?
Yeah. One that comes up for me is this idea that I am here because of my knowledge. I think we need to scrap that. We need to scrap it fast. I think I remember Being a teenager in high school and learning my TA 89 and feeling really accomplished when I did that, and how my child now has much more advanced tools for that knowledge, right? If we are focused on our value being connected to the knowledge we have, we're going to constantly be replaced. That knowledge keeps getting replaced, and then we are no longer as valuable. It's not your knowledge, it's your skill. And it's your skill in two areas, it's your people skill and your strategic thinking. And so, if you can help people get on board with something, get motivated around a specific action, and mobilize them towards it where they hit their goals, that is immensely valuable. No AI tool can replace that. And if you are really great at not just taking the insight, but developing the strategy, because AI will give you suggested strategies, but it doesn't mean it's the one that's best for your people. So you take that knowledge of your people and you think about, all right, how do I steer us and keep everybody feeling motivated about the next phase? Those are human skills, gotta have them. And so if I believe that I'm knowledgeable and that's why I'm valuable, that's why I got this job, it's very likely that the information is accessible now, right? I know just as much as the history professor because it's all at my fingertips. But what do I do with that insight? That is always going to be important. And so the mindset shift is my value is not connected to my knowledge. Knowledge is accessible. My value is about the way I treat people and steer them towards where the company needs to go.
And we kind of talked about the group of people that, are utilizing AI to leverage it in their jobs. They're thinking about how to use it. And then another group, not to segment two, but kind of, kind of saying, hey, I'm not touching this. I'm not going to deal with
Yeah,
it right now. What
yeah.
skills separate those two groups, for kind of
Mm,
those who are really kind of excited about, kind of adopting it, and those who are kind of like, I don't want to, touch this thing at all.
yeah. That's a good question. There's a couple things popping up. The first one is just this like identity flexibility. There's really good research about the things we say to our children and how it informs who they see themselves as adults. And one of them that is pretty controversial is there's a ton of research that says you shouldn't tell people they're smart. You shouldn't say, hey, daughter, you are so smart. That creates a fixed mindset. It sends a message to their psyche that this is who you are. And anytime you aren't showing up this way, you have an identity crisis. So, getting a bad grade on a test or getting a report that doesn't go the way you want it to sends you a message that you don't know who you are anymore. And it's small. It's a small thing we say. We think it's encouraging, but we praise our teammates and our colleagues the same way, where we say, you're brilliant, right? You are the reason why this is working. But we don't tell them what they're doing. We don't really pull up the specific skills. And so it's really hard for people to see, hey, I've been in this work for a long time. I'm really good at it. And that's why everyone values me, and to see that be tested in this climate is really hard. And I think there are some things that people can say to themselves to unwire that. It's not that I'm smart, it's that I listen. And when I listen, I understand the needs of the environment really, really well. It's not that I'm smart, but it's that I don't give up. Right? I am constantly pushing and shifting, and so I'm going to be valuable in the workforce. And so when I think about your question, what is it? It's not a skill gap; it's a mindset gap, and it's connected to that flexibility, that resilience, that identity that I can figure it out versus the identity that I know a lot. The identity that I know a lot is going to be stuck. It's going to be
Mhm.
stuck for a long
Yeah.
time. But the figure it out, like the willingness to say, oh, there's a bunch of stuff I didn't know that I know now. And I don't know this, but I'll figure that out too. That seems to be the differentiator.
And that's kind of that fixed mindset and growth mindset, I think,
Yes.
there.
Yes. I
All
could have
right.
said that more succinctly. Fixed versus growth mindset. That's my answer.
Okay, very nice. Okay. Emerging roles and skills. So let's talk about specifics. What roles are growing because of AI? Uh, what would you think about that?
Yeah, I think there are less manual roles. So places where there's a step-by-step process, a workflow replaces immediately, right? So it's, and then there are things that we assume have to be done manually that there are really advanced tools to create. You can have, for example, in our line of work, we pitch a scope of work for a client, then we build that into a proposal. They say yes or no, we negotiate, that becomes a contract. There are tools that can make that one step. And usually there's a person behind the scenes doing all those things. So anytime there's a process that can be delineated in an SOP, standard operating procedure,
Mhm.
there's likely a bot that can replace that. And so I think the manual work is hard to hold on to with an AI climate. But I do think the insights work, the work where I've got to make meaning, I've got to compel people to care about it, that work doesn't go away. So, and that happens at all altitudes of the organization. It's not just senior level roles. There are entry level, junior level team members who have to make change across the department. That assistant has to get people to care about the things the executive is focused on, and so it's not specific to entry level. But anytime you can automate something, we should assume that the work is pulling us deeper. But what can we do with that?
Okay. And what skills are becoming non-negotiable skills? Technical, strategic, human-centered, other skills in the era of AI.
Yeah, I think coding is valuable, even low code. So even if you are not a tech person, there are opportunities to create automations and workflows to keep information moving. And I think about the amount of time people spend in meetings because they're giving meeting updates that people could have gotten really quickly through some automations, saves everybody a lot of time. So I think places where you can learn how to code even at the basic level, simplify work, save people time. I think the skills that people will continue to need to refine is the strategy, the why are we doing this? What are we not doing? Because AI makes things so much easier to do quickly, we might assume we should do more. We might assume like, okay, business can just handle more things. And I think that's not the case. I think it takes some courage to look at some options and say, not that one, this one, placing my bets here. Everybody come with me in this direction. Let's put all our effort into this. And then we'll see if we want to change course. But I think sometimes the AI tools make us think we should just do all of it. We should just do a lot. And you create a ripple effect in your workforce plan where you don't know who you're hiring. You don't know what kind of profile you need. You're looking for unicorns, people who can do it all. And so still being really clear on which direction do I want to go? What's the strategic move in our business right now? I think people will need to continue to refine that. I think that will get harder.
As a follow-up question, if someone in HR or corporate leadership wanted to future-proof themselves this year, what should they focus
Mm,
on first?
future proof. That's not a thing. I think they should probably focus on that. But I do think compliance is never going away. So needing to understand legal compliance, and I think that will evolve over time. But being the person that keeps the organization compliant and prevents them from navigating litigation unnecessarily, that's always important, super valuable in an HR space. I think that compensation design will continue to increase in value for HR leaders. I think that organizations spend a lot of money on market studies every year. There are tools that are pretty accessible where internal teams can do that themselves, right? Where we can keep a pulse on the market, understand what it means, and how to apply it to our organization, especially because budgets are tightening. There aren't places where we can expect to do that 2, 3, 5% increase year over year. We need to get more strategic with how we're managing compensation and not leaving people feeling like there's no room in the budget for appreciation. There's no room in the budget for recognition. And so not just the technical aspect of comp design, but the strategic, how are we taking care of people part of total rewards, that will always be important, and it is a high need skill in organizations. I think recruitment continues to be critical, and there are lots of places where AI is driving recruitment work. Be careful about those screening tools that are looking across hundreds of resumes and shooting you a few to the top. Lots of places for error and bias there, but really good at giving recruiters some breathing room. They have a lot on their plates. So I think being able to see places where your recruitment process can leave candidates feeling seen, I think that gets missed. I think a lot of our recruitment processes leave candidates feeling like I would never work there. I'm glad they never called me, because we miss there's our missed opportunities to use those workflows to communicate with candidates to say, hey, thank you for interviewing today. Here's what we learned about you. I
Mhm.
can take my AI notes and quickly send that out and automate that so they feel like we heard them.
Mhm.
So I think future proof sounds like legal and compliance always important. Really important to understand compensation design and places where that can help the organization operate strategically. And then thinking about recruitment and where those talent tracking systems are getting more advanced.
Okay, and you talked about recruitment, which is an area that I think may be interesting for a lot of our
Yeah.
viewers because people are always dealing with that either on one side or the other side of the equation. It
Yeah.
feels like that is really becoming, I don't want to use like an overly strong word, but almost dominated by primarily like AI. You talked about the AI
Yeah.
screeners, the AI. Can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about that? I mean, what do you think is the future of that area? Because it does
Yeah.
seem like it's not very human, not very personal, right?
Yeah, I can see that. I think there are two things that humans do that tools will struggle to do, at least in the near future. The first one is candidate cultivation. So once people are in your system, the technology can have lots of fun. But getting people to want to apply to you, that's a human thing. It's not advertising, it's not marketing. It's having those conversations with people and always having a talent pipeline that recruiters do really, really well. That connection they have with your company before there's a role posted makes them want to apply. So making the company sexy on the front end is a very human thing. And then I think on the back end, that selection place, not just where you are screening the candidate, but they are screening you. And they are not screening your AI tool. They are screening the interviewers, everyone on the hiring committee, every assistant who sends an email. They're saying, do I want to work here? So training those hiring teams and hiring managers to show up as warm, as strategic, as thoughtful, that is what makes people say yes. I think we've seen, our hiring economy has gone back and forth from being very employer friendly to very talent friendly and back and forth, right? Where it's like who has the power now, depending on how many jobs are available. But people still always have a choice whether or not they want to work with you. And if your recruiters or the people who are operating in a hiring capacity aren't coming across well, it doesn't matter how well you screen them. Those top people are going to say, no, I am not interested in working here. And so I think what it allows us to do, where I'd love to see more AI tools used, is getting the right assessment. We use interviews for everything. We use performance tasks badly. And so people get into new roles who can interview well, but haven't actually demonstrated competency. And so they suck at that job, and we don't have great onboarding, and they figure it out, but it might take a year instead of in 2 weeks. I want you to be able to hit the ground running. We aren't screening for the right competencies. And I think AI tools can help us use better performance tasks or better, even in the interview, better questioning to get underneath the skill gaps that we're looking for.
Okay, and I think we're going to go a little longer than
Oh, okay.
20 to 30, but as long as you're okay, I think it's a very
Sure.
interesting topic and people will
I'm
be
good.
interested to hear it.
Sure.
So, from practical AI adoption for organizations, for companies listening today, especially mid-sized organizations, what's a practical starting point for AI adoption in the area?
Yeah, that I would say that listening strategy, looking for places where you're using some tools to get synthesis. What are people experiencing? What are our priorities? Synthesis tools are a starting place. The second thing I'm thinking about is all those tedious processes that no one wants to do. Find an AI tool to say, hey, we see you. We know you hate this tedious part of your job. We're investing in something to automate that so you can operate more strategically. You can do the fun part of your job. You can do the part where you get to use your brain and not the step by step. And so get insight, make sure you are actually using the very widely available staff engagement analysis. And you can say, our people are loving this, they're hating this, we know what to go do. But also on the other side of that, take something off of their plate. And that can create a sense of energy around the AI tool. The AI tool is not here just to rob us of work. It is to create conditions where work is less miserable and you get to do the fun part of the job. So building some investment with your team might look like taking something off of their plate.
And how do they adopt AI responsibly without overcomplicating it?
That's a good question. I think go slow, right? I think there are lots of options of places where you could pull in new tools. You overwhelm people and then you slow down the work. And then you kind of create the conditions where they work themselves out of a job. They're overwhelmed. And so they aren't creating output. That's not, we should find technology to replace the people. And so choose the areas, again, strategically to invest to say, I want everybody to buy into these pieces versus let's find AI across everything we do. Not necessary creates a state of burnout that you could have avoided.
Yeah, and I think that there is the thought process that AI is able to just do everything. And at least from the things that I've experienced and seen in, companies, it really needs to be guided in terms of making
Yeah.
sure you'll see it come up. Like there was a story of like a lawyer who was using AI for their cases to cite different cases. And it turned out that,
Mm.
I don't think they ended up getting sanctioned, but the cases were all made up. They weren't real. So
Oh my
the AI said it with
gosh.
complete authority. Like, yeah, here's the cases, here's the case law. And the lawyer's just like, yep, let's take those. And
Wow.
it turned out that those were not real cases. So there is a
Yeah.
lot that still needs to be, we call, I guess, the human in the loop, aspect
Yeah.
of it, right?
Yeah.
To go with it, yeah.
Absolutely. I see it as I can't take credit for this quote, but I'm not sure where I found it. They talk about the seat at the table where you want the voices at the table and you just give AI a seat. AI doesn't take over the table. They don't build a new table. You still need to have a table where people sit and share their thinking. That is always going to be important. But where are the places where you can give each other a lift? Just like you would be collaborating with a team member, collaborate with AI.
What advice would you give to executives who are hesitant to move forward?
If you don't move, you go backwards. Yeah, like it's not optional. If you don't choose to move, you are moving in the other direction. You need to keep up. You need to be looking at the trends in any aspect of your business. This is just one of them. And so I think you don't have to overhaul your business. You can be people centric. But when you look at your budget and you look for places where you don't have talent creating ROI, enter AI. Find those places where you can add the tech tools.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about with these skill building and collaboration. So we talked about building AI skills consistently. What does
Mhm.
ongoing AI skill development look like for leaders?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that there are a lot of great conferences that people should incorporate in their L&D strategy. So that 20% of that 70-20-10, where you can be learning from the way other orgs are applying it. I think that keeps us fresh, that keeps us innovating. Every time I go to a conference, I walk out of a session saying, I like that, and here's how I'm going to build on it. Right. And so we continue to refine the work for each other. Uh, I think looking for conferences that are sharing out is a really great starting place.
And how
And
should
podcasts like yours.
yeah, absolutely. How should professionals think about weekly AI reps, kind of the same way they think about gym reps? Is there kind of a like a
Mm,
or incorporating it into, how they strengthen their skill sets?
yeah, I can see that. I think, I like to look at my dashboard across the things that are top of mind for my line of work. So I've got to look at my sales data. I've got to look at whether or not we're turning a client into a repeat client or if there are referrals. Make time to sit and look at that. I make time to think about how my staff are experiencing the company. Do they have what they need? Are they feeling set up for success? Are they frustrated? I look at that and I look at our stakeholder effectiveness. Do clients get what they need from us when we do good work for them? And so when I see that seat at the table for AI, how am I doing with leveraging technology to make work better for my people? That's another level of reflection. So I don't know if I think weekly is necessary. I think you got to start something and monitor that before you add new things. But yes, are there places where people can experience work with more enjoyment because we've taken the mundane parts out of work? Yes. In terms of like, should I don't know, I've seen those things online where it's like learn about these things every
Mhm.
week and become a master
Mhm.
over time.
Mhm.
I don't know how valuable that is if you aren't applying anything. I think you do much better
Mhm.
learning. Again, I'm a little bit of a parrot here, 70-20-10.
Mhm.
I see those things as too much 10,
Mhm.
too much of the formal learning, the like
Mhm.
knowledge, but none of the application, none of the how
Mhm.
did it work, none of the like flexibility in my thinking that
Mhm.
allows me to say I have actually learned something. I've just been exposed. So
Mhm.
exposure is a part of learning, but it is not learning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do a quick rapid fire kind of round here. A few quick
Okay.
responses.
Sure.
One AI tool that every HR leader should experiment with.
Something in that applicant tracking system. Go straight there and think about where your recruitment efforts can get simpler, cleaner, more effective.
And the biggest AI myth.
That it's replacing jobs. I don't think that's true. I think there are places where jobs change, and sometimes people aren't ready for that change. But the AI itself is not replacing jobs.
All right. One skill that will matter even more in 5 years.
Mm. Connection, making people feel seen and valued,
And AI, is it a threat or a multiplier?
both.
Hmm.
Can I choose that?
Yeah.
I think it's
You want
both.
to elaborate on that
It,
one?
yeah, I think it can multiply your efforts if you have something good to start with. But if you don't have something good to build off of, AI itself is not going to do anything for you. It's gonna slow you down. So figure out what you do, what you're trying to do. Do that really well, and then add AI. Don't assume that AI will create something that's not good to start with.
Great. All right. So it's a little closing reflection here.
Sure.
Travonnie, if there's one message that you want HR leaders and professionals to walk away with today, what is it?
Mm. You can do learning and development strategy. AI makes it easier in a lot of ways. Learning and development is the bucket of HR that gets skipped when talent teams are tight. So if we only have a couple of hands in the fire, we are going to recruit, we're going to do comp and benefits. And sometimes that's all we can do. But the L&D plays such a huge role in staff engagement. And there are AI tools that make that possible in a way that I would say probably wasn't 5 years ago. Getting managers some hands-on tools where it can assess a whole training library and give people the right now piece they need in a coaching conversation with a staff member. Lean into L&D in a way that we haven't in the past.
All right. And before we wrap up, where can people connect with you? If you please share your website, LinkedIn, and
Yeah.
platforms where our audience can follow your work. And we'll also include those in the show notes as well. But if you want to just share where people can contact and reach out to you, we'll make sure to.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I would say go to our website, impact.work. We spell impact with an E. We are corny about that. We think empathy and impact is one new word where you take care of people and that's how you grow the business. So impact.work, W-O-R-K. You can also find me on LinkedIn. That's where I am most active. So lovely connecting with you.
All right. Perfect. And we'll include all of Shivani's links in the show notes so you can connect directly. So this has been powerful. AI is not just a technology conversation, it's a talent conversation, a leadership conversation, ultimately position conversation. So thank you, Travonnie, for being here. To our listeners, if this episode resonated, share it with a leader, HR professional, or someone navigating career growth in this AI area. Follow AIScento for more conversations at the intersection of AI leadership and strategic growth. And until next time, stay curious, stay strategic, and build your AI advantage.